Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this Research Champions Workshop 2024. My name is Amit Kulkarni. I'm Head of Research and Outcomes here at the RCSLT, and I have the pleasure of chairing the day today. It's great to see so many of you joining. I think we're expecting more may drop in across the day, so we look forward to seeing everybody then. Really excited to present this day for you. There's been lots of updates at the strategic level and at the coalface in the world of SLT and AHP research. So really looking forward to discuss those with you today. And there's lots of plans as well for future development. So really looking forward to having the opportunity to discuss those too. Before we get started, we just need to start with a little bit of housekeeping. So everybody knows, Justina is on hand to help you if there are any technical issues that happen across the day. So you can get in touch with her directly, or if you go to the chat to look for RCSLT host, then she will answer any queries that you have. We will be having, just to mention to people, you might need to mute yourself as you come into the room, please. We will be having some Q&A sessions across the day, and for those sessions, please do either send in questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand when that Q&A happens. So please do use both of those options. Just so that everyone's clear, the presentation part of the day is being recorded, and it will be made available on the RCSLT website after a little bit of editing after the event. But we will also be having workshop sessions during the day, and we really want the opportunity for a bit more interactivity during those workshop sessions, and we really want you to feel like you can be completely open and honest. So we won't be recording those workshop sessions. Could I just mention to everyone again, please do mute yourself as you come into the room. Okay, if you could go to next slide, please. Before I forget, actually, obviously, it's a great opportunity for us to network across this day, and X is one place to do that. So if you get the opportunity across the day, please do publicize the event on X and use the hashtag that's there at the bottom of the slide, hashtag RC Workshop 2024. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the aims of the day. And our program planning group thought long and hard about really what we want to achieve from this day. And hopefully across the day, we're going to provide you with opportunities to hear about the latest goings on at a strategic level in terms of SLT and AHP research. And that will include updates on everything that the research and outcomes team has been up to, as well as people in key strategic positions. We felt like we really wanted to offer sort of slightly more in-depth opportunities for you to learn about any key areas of research and evidence-based practice that you were interested in. So we're going to have some workshop sessions across the day, and we've tried to tailor that to kind of different stages in a research career. So please look forward to those. We have our posters, which will be displayed this time around on a Padlet, as our opportunity for members who wanted to showcase some of their research endeavors. So hopefully prior to the event and extensively over lunchtime, please do check out the poster Padlet and see what other research champions have been up to. And then we really thought that a key element of the day would be the networking side of things, which is of course more difficult online than if we have an in-person workshop, but we've tried to build in opportunities for you to build connections or extend connections within the Research Champions community. So please do take the most of those. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go on and hand over to Hazel in a second to start talking about the work that she and others have been doing at the national level. But before I do so, I recognize that many of you will be new to the Research Champions Network or maybe new to one of our events. Others you may have joined a long time ago and it may have lost focus. So I just thought it was a good opportunity to really reconnect with what the Research Champions Group is and what we are here for. And No surprises. I'm sure everybody's here for the same thing. You know, we are a group of speech and language therapists who are particularly interested in all things evidence and research. And at the RCSLT, we feel like there's such power in having a network like that. We can be such agents of change, and we are the ones that are driving forward the research and evidence agenda within speech and language therapy. So it's great to have this opportunity to reconnect with all of you and re-establish that focus. From the RCSLT, we'd very much like to provide resources, opportunities. Apologies if you could, thank you, mute as you come in. Yeah, so we'd really like to provide resources and opportunity networking for you to further pursue your research endeavors. And we hope as well that you can offer insights from that to those around you. So whether it be cascading some of the resources into your local teams or offering mentorship to those around you, we hope it's a kind of a whole network that can reach into every SLT team across the country and continue to drive forward the research and evidence-based practice agenda. So thank you so much for attending and for taking on that approach and those responsibilities. As I said, we're hoping the day will provide lots of ammunition and lots of energy and enthusiasm for you to continue doing that. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, Dr. Hazel Rodham, who is going to tell us about national updates on the AHP research agenda. So over to you, Hazel.
Many thanks for the introduction, Amit, and many thanks for the invitation from you and the team to join you all today. I've joined many times in person over previous years, and I'm delighted to be very much involved in this exciting community of RCSLT research champions. RCSLT is very important to me. It's my professional body. But what I want to talk to you about today, which is really exciting and important, is to give everybody the opportunity to feel really up to date with the very latest things that are happening nationally. And by nationally, I mean for nationwide. And I will specify that as I give you a few updates now. So since January 2021, I've had the opportunity, I was invited to work with Beverly Harden. So she's the Deputy Chief Allied Health Professions Officer for England. And at that time, she was with Health Education England, HEE, now subsumed into the new NHS England. And Beverly's role is for workforce development. So pre-registration and post-registration, ends of the spectrum. And she invited me to begin to do the work to develop our first national, for England, published Allied Health Professions Research and Innovation Strategy. So the work that I've been involved in and that I'm going to talk to you about today is about how we have set about promoting opportunities, increased opportunities for all our AHP workforce, pre and post registration, to have more opportunities to access existing infrastructure for research and innovation. But we've also been really working hard at developing increased opportunities for support for the workforce. And this goes across our 14 professional bodies, representing 16 AHP disciplines. So it's really great to feel part of a much, much broader community. And so that's the feeling, the sense that I want to share with you today. So there's lots and lots of familiar names I can see on my screen, which is lovely to see you again, even though we can't be in person. Lots of new names as well. So for some of you, the news that I'm going to share in these next few slides might already be familiar. But you know what? You'll have the slides, the recording will be available. Your role as ambassadors and champions is to share the news outwards. So for those of you who are here with us today, I'm really delighted that you then get the opportunity to have this, all this new intelligence, information, and share that onwards. So thank you, in anticipation of you doing that for us. Thank you. So I'll go to the next slide, please. Okay, so since I started working in this particular role, I have been absolutely blown away by the pace of change. I've been involved in this agenda for over 20 years, promoting evidence-based practice and opportunities to engage in research activities. But what we've seen from this investment from Beverly Harden has been the consequence for all of us of many new opportunities, but an exciting pace of change. We've always had incremental, slow, snail's pace change, but the last few years have seen lots and lots of things. It really has been a catalyst since we published the Research and Innovation Strategy. Later that same year, so November 22, we held the first ever Allied Health Professions Research Summit, and that was facilitated for us by NIHR Academy and led on the day by Dr. Jo Watson, who you'll be hearing from her later on today. And we celebrated the anniversary event. So January 23, we had a birthday party, which was a full day of presentations about showcasing the exciting environment and very new initiatives that had started in the previous year since the publication of the strategy. I'm highlighting this because that full day was recorded, and all those recorded presentations and lots of resources are still very timely, and they're all available, completely freely available on the CAPA website. So if you're not aware of those, please do look at them and share them with other people. Those presentations on the day included a superb presentation about the RCSLT route tool, and really explained clearly about the importance of real-world evidence and real-world data, and how everyone can be involved in that in your own services wherever you work. The AHP Research Think Tank I'm going to speak about in a moment, and I'm also going to introduce you to our new CAPA director. And I'm delighted that immediately following my presentation, I'm going to be introducing you to the new NIHR Assistant Director for Allied Health Professions Research. So all these things have happened that we could barely dream of, hope for. It is more than we hoped for. We were bold and ambitious when we published the strategy, but great things have been happening. Next slide, thank you. Okay, so in November last year, November 23, we held the Research Think Tank. That was a follow-on event from the previous November, which had been the AHP Research Strategy Summit. So the focus of the AHP Research Summit was to try to examine the interdisciplinary disparities. Why were some AHPs apparently having more success in securing opportunities for research and innovation activities compared to other colleagues? That was an amazing event, and it raised lots of very important issues that were documented and have then subsequently been actioned. The think tank we held a year later, I convened that because I felt we really needed to probe much more deeply into what were the differentiated support needs to enable us across all our professional disciplines, work sectors, job roles, geographical locations, and other protected characteristics. How are we going to level the playing field for everyone to increase our opportunities? And one of the strongest messages that came out was that we just need to be much more effective and impactful in terms of our communication. So lots of opportunities exist. People keep asking us, and I think, well, the information's already there. We need to be much smarter, much more visible and transparent and effective in communication. I've highlighted here the top take-home messages, but again, the report from this, as all the report and the briefing pack from the summit the year before, everything's available on the CAPA website. So these resources are there for everyone, so that we don't need to restart those mapping exercises of where are we now. However, one thing we do need to map, where are we now, is the number of our clinical academics, our formal roles. And we hope that as those numbers increase and become more embedded and more accessible as career options for people, that we will know our starting point. So there's a mapping exercise that you'll hear a little bit more about today. So I'm not going to talk in detail about these. each of these items, except to say that we've secured yet again more investment from NHS England through Beverly Harden to be able to actually take some of these priorities forward. So these were the agreed priorities, and I'm going to say what we're doing a little bit more about that. So next slide, please. Now then, this is the particular news I wanted to share with you about all the flood of activities and change that's taking place in CAPA this year in particular. So CAPA may be familiar to some of you, but not necessarily all of you. But CAPA are having a big relaunch and rebrand this year. It's a really exciting year. We hope to be able to make a lot of announcements on the 9th of October. So that's only in a couple of weeks, and that's highlighted at the bottom. Booking online for that online event started about 10 days ago and was instantly full. So they've increased the number of places. Please do join us if you can. But again, it will be recorded and information will be available. But there'll be a number of new announcements, including some of these rebranding issues, our new website, our new mission statement, our new directory of AHP professors. Now, I'm saying our because I'm very proud to say that we've now formed a board of trustees, and I've been appointed as the chair of trustees. So after my many, many years, 2 decades of investment in the development of CAPA up to this stage, I'm still able to contribute and help to lead some continuity in our new developments. I'll go to the next slide, please. This is our very latest addition to the CAPA portfolio and visibility. So this is the appointment on the 1st of August this year of our new director. Now, Karina Grimes is in a part-time role. CAPA, for those of you who are not aware, is a voluntary organisation which is funded by subscriptions from our allied health professional bodies. So CAPA have appointed Karina to be our director, to give that national visibility. Karina is a specialist dietitian. She's also a national deputy director at NHS England. She's a visiting research fellow with Trinity College Dublin, and she's also an Atlantic Fellow for Equity in Brain Health. So Karina started as an AHP in clinical practice, but has gone on to have an amazing career in leadership, leading transformational change. And she's come in to help us in CAPA. She has this appointment now to work with the strategy board and with the board of trustees to help us to just push CAPA's visibility, prestige, and reputation. So she will be available to be able to represent CAPA with many of our key national strategic stakeholders. Karina was invited to join us today, and she's really sorry that because her appointment is so new, she was already committed and unable to join us today, but she sends her greetings. So for all of you here at the RCSLT Research Champions event today, you are the first professional body to have this personal message from Karina in her role as CAPA Director. So please keep watching for her name. Watch on Twitter or X, as Amit has already encouraged us to keep using that social media channel to communicate news of what's going on. And I'll go to my next slide, please. Thank you. And this is going to be talked about in more detail in a few minutes' time by my colleague, Dr. Jen Sutton. Jen is working with me this year using this investment from NHS England, but this time it is really, really expressly for the benefit of all 4 nations. And we are working on these 4 key strategic priorities that have come directly from our NHS funded allied health think tank that we held in November last year. So that's where the priorities have come from. The investment has come from NHS England, but it is expressly for the benefit of all AHP disciplines and all 4 nations. And so in a few moments' time, Jen is going to come online and she's going to explain to you in a lot more detail about why what we're doing in each of these and the progress that we've made already. We hit the ground running, and I'll be together with Jen and we'll talk to you a bit more about that. So now I'm going to ask for the next slide, and I am delighted, absolutely thrilled to introduce to you Dr. Lisa Ledger, who has been appointed for the first ever Allied Health Professions Director, Assistant Director of Research at NIHR. And that came as a consequence of the Allied Health Professions Research Think Tank that we ran in November 2022. So thank you everyone for listening. I'll see you in a few moments, but over to Lisa. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Hazel, and wonderful to be invited to be part of the day. I can see you've got an amazing agenda and speakers lined up. So very pleased to be here and have the opportunity to really, I guess, just share some initial essences and highlights of my role and developments and where things are at with NIHR and AHP-ness, as I call it. So for those that don't know me, a few do. So I'm Dr. Lisa Ledger, an occupational therapist by trade, but extremely passionate across the piece, really, around demonstrating and improving and increasing AHP reach and AHP worth, and that includes workforce, but also research, innovation, and the other strands. So I was delighted to be given the opportunity in this national post really to drive AHP voice and influence and research across the board for us all. And I think that's important for us all, really. So commenced in role in June, which feels like, I have to say, the weeks have flown by. I haven't been sitting pretty. It's been very busy, but in a good way. Having to remain very focused, I would say, also in that the key focus really is to develop and implement and support national initiatives around AHP research capacity and capability. Within that broadly, there are two key focuses around internal ambassador within NIHR, and that's keeping me busy too, and that's great. So both strategically and operationally, being the voice for AHPs, asking the questions, putting a challenge in the room where appropriate. And I've only experienced thus far open doors. I have to say, I've been genuinely bowled over by the appetite to understand more about what we're about our worth and our contribution, and really to me, our beautiful lens of what we can offer, really. So, and also externally, a huge role, of course, here today. I've been busy dipping all around the country because I feel like I have, you know, it's really important that I'm seen, that I'm open, and I want, you know, that to be known today, really, that I'm here for you to listen and to understand the different positions that AHPs are within your profession, but also the other professions. On this slide here, it mentions about levelling the field. Well, we know that's a huge task and ask, but it's absolutely pivotal to certainly my focus, and also the conversations and the design that's being built up for the AHP Research Leaders Programme and the new team. So very keen eye on equity, inclusion and belonging. Next slide, please. Key priorities. So I need some people to support me, and of course, one of the, I guess, challenges is, you know, if you're at the helm of something and it's suddenly for you to deliver everything, it's not going to happen to deliver everything. It's never, to me, about one person. So I absolutely own and feel my sort of duty to deliver on the key asks of and needs of this post. But really it's to reach out and say today, and I mean, using Amit's words, agents of change, it's for us all to lead and to shape and to grab the amazing, because it is amazing times now for us as AHPs to go get this stuff. Let's be the agents of change. But it doesn't matter if we're in a higher strategic post. You know, early on, I remember when back in the day, basic grade rotation at Portsmouth, and hearing one of the OT assistants say, "Oh, she's a bit feisty. We haven't heard a basic grade start talking about changing things this early on." And I guess that's me, you know, being that curious mind and putting in that challenge and really wanting to do the best that we can do, really, for the citizens and the people that we serve. So, but I need some help. So I can't share yet who, but delighted to say after very successful interview rounds, there will be a senior programme manager and programme officer to support myself in the AHP activity at NIHR, and to oversee and lead the development of the new Research Leaders Programme for Allied Health Professionals, which is due to commence sometime in 2025. And the initial cohort will likely be smaller. I'm not in a position to say numbers yet, but the purposes of to grow it right and to pilot, to co-design, and to have the chance to evaluate that programme. Next slide, please. I think this says it all to me, really. So collaboration is everything. And it's one of the three, I'm quite a visual thinker. And so I have kind of three circles forming that are all interrelated. And connectivity and collaboration is one of the three strands that I see as the absolute pivotal in how we can do this together. So we need to build it together. I want this to speak to all of us. This is about all of us, whether we're AHPs in SLT, whether we're providing allyship to another professional AHP group, whether we're working in a health or a social care setting, whether we're in at the beginning of a research journey and we need to reach out and have a conversation, or whether we're postdoctorally bringing in that mentoring and support. All of us. It's really important with my sort of, I talk about having the grittiness on which to shape this. We need the grittiness too. We need the strands of connectivity. So I'm talking to all these people. All these groups need to be involved that are on the slide. So of course, CAPA goes without saying, the professional bodies, NHS England, but also others, you know, medical officers, the NMAPs, our nursing midwifery colleagues, the newly forming regional research and delivery networks, and the chief allied health professional structures, so that the connectivity and the collaboration we've got right. Also, just briefly to share that I've formulated a new NIHR sort of AHP research leaders stakeholder group, and we will be meeting actually in very soon, in a couple of weeks' time, to again shape and help and inform where we're going with this. And I will, when I get chance, want to set up a virtual drop-in with myself, but for anyone to come and have a conversation about research. Next slide, please. So we're on the last slide, so I just want to mention the two other parts of the circles that I alluded to in the previous area. So the other circle that's huge, and I know you know this, but it's about culture. So from the heart of the people, are we research hungry? How do we empower every AHP at whatever point in their career to sort of, to be research curious and research hungry, and importantly to support them in the organisations, to ensure that culture is also embedded within the organisations in which they work, so they don't feel disappointed early on in their career journey and decide this isn't for me. or they don't overhear a conversation that states something about research sitting over to the side. You know, we can be ambassadors to support the culture. And finally, the other area around infrastructure, which is on this slide. So we need to keep working with systems to actually embed the infrastructure. I'm just conscious of time. I do apologise because I get very passionate about this. But I think hopefully I've shared with you the essences of building a team. There's a huge appetite at NIHR for AHP-ness. And I'll be coming to you really soon about the new Research Leaders Programme for AHPs due to start next year. And do drop me a line, and thank you for listening.
Well, I'd like to say thank you very much to Lisa for taking the time to join us today. We're thrilled and excited to hear you, to meet you in person through this medium, and delighted that you've had this chance to open that opportunity and that invitation to our RCSLT research champions. I'm going to introduce my colleague, Dr. Jen Sutton now, who's working with me on this CAPA Accelerator project for 2024. As I explained, this is the investment that we've had from NHS England. And I'm going to turn to Jen to please talk through in detail each of our 4 work streams and the progress that we've done so far.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today. And Hazel, do jump in at any point if there's anything extra you want to add. So I'm Jen, I'm the project lead for CAP24, and I'm going to talk you through all 4 of our work streams and the progress we've made so far. We started the project in May, so it's still relatively new. It's a 12-month funded project across all 4 nations. So the very first work stream and the work package is creating a really robust online research resource bank for CAPA. So it's really timely because CAPA is getting a new web page and lots of updates. So we're putting together a phased upload of lots and lots of different research resources, basically so that CAPA becomes the one place that if you have a question at any stage in your research journey, be it that you're just beginning to think about research, or that you're further along and you want some more specific support at a later point in your career, you can come to the CAPA web page and it'll redirect you to where you need to go. So what we've done so far is we spent a lot of time initially planning with CAPA around the scope of this resource, sustainability of it, what would it look like after the year of this project is finished. And we spent a lot of time reviewing the existing resources that are already on the CAPA web pages, collating them and thinking about where they might be housed going forward. We spent a lot of time collecting new resources to be added to the resource bank. And yeah, we as a project team have access to the web page, and we've started to upload some new bits of information. We're going to have 2 uploads. So the first one is due to be timed with the new CAPA website launching on the 9th of October. And that's really going to have a big focus on a few areas. One of them is around research funding. So we've collated a huge data bank of different resource funding, both government funding, funding that's profession specific, funding from different charity organisations that are open to AHPs, and there's a lot of information about how you access it. That'll all be on CAPA, and there'll be links to each specific element of funding that you can go on and read some more information about it. A second big part of this upload as well is that we're looking at things like how you capture research impact. So tools to do that, we'll be adding those to the website. How you can capture research capacity, culture, capabilities of your organisation or individual level. All those kind of tools that are existing out there, we're putting those onto the resource too. And then a lot about research networks. So there'll be a huge kind of upload around different research networks that you can join that are profession specific, but then some cross-profession specific networks as well. And then the second upload is due to happen in December, and that will have a load of other extra research resources, but it'll also have a bit of a focus on innovation as well, because we're aware that that is less of a focus at the moment on a CAPA web page. So that's where we are with that. If I could have the next slide, please. So the second work stream is around looking at campaign planning. So hoping to put together a campaign brief. So it's not to deliver a campaign, but it's to put together a campaign brief or some information and tools to support campaigning, basically, that CAPA can use and that the professional bodies can also use. It's to look at campaigning for equitable access to research funding, and we're looking at that equity across 4 areas. So equity between ourselves and other colleagues, such as medical doctor colleagues. So how equitable is it, the amount of funding we're eligible to apply for versus them? Equity between the professions, because we know that some professions are much more successful than others at achieving research funding. Equity in terms of the 4 nations, and then equity in terms of protected characteristics. So we've done a lot of the, so far in the last few months, we've done a lot of the kind of groundwork for this. So we spent some time mapping AHP research funders and looking at the sorts of things that they fund. We've had a lot of consultation conversations. So that's across, we spoke to some different AHP professional and clinical academics and their experiences, and what some of the barriers in applying for funding and accessing funding might have been. We've also met with things like the Kappa Southwest Hub did a really great piece of work on advancing research careers on under-recognised AHP groups. We spent some time working with them. There's another piece of work that will be on the Kappa webpage when it launches around fair research project, and that was looking at specific barriers in terms of protected characteristics. We've met with that project team. So we've basically done a lot of consultation conversations and a lot of preliminary work. So now we're at the point, we've also linked in with internal support from Royal College of OT, who's hosting a project in terms of campaign planning and how you put that together. So we're now at the point of working with the Kappa director and all the kind of relevant stakeholders to look at putting together some resources for campaign planning. So that's where we are with this one. If I could have the next slide, please. So the third work stream we're working on is mapping the UK clinical academic or clinical practitioner workforce. So this is obviously quite a big feat to try and map across the whole of the UK where our AHP clinical academics or clinical practitioner academics are. So we've spent some time looking at what metrics we might need to map for this and what processes we might employ to be able to map this. So we did a lot of preliminary work there, and then we convened a consultation group. So we had our very first consultation meeting on the 18th of July, and it was a half-day session, and that had representation from all sorts of stakeholders. So things like the Council of Deans of Health, because they run the name's cropped out of my head now. They run a survey that captures some of this information. You had representatives from NIHR, we had representatives from all the different elements of research delivery, and people who are running their own research within AHP spheres. So it's a fantastic day, and we've got that kind of consultation group there to support us in creating this kind of metrics for mapping and processes. So from that day, it's most of the feedback, it seems that we're going to try, we are going to do a national survey. We're going to be creating a national survey that's at an individual level. We're at the moment, we're in the process of creating the first draft of that, linked, and then that will obviously be reviewed by a consultation group, and we're going to do some piloting for that towards the end of the year. Next slide, please. So the final work stream that we're working on is creating a research leadership community, AHP research leadership community through Kappa. So this will kind of sit alongside a lot of the other research leadership work that's going on in the NIHR that Lisa touched on earlier, and also some of the existing groups that we have in terms of Kappa hubs. But the hope is that we're going to create a leadership group who can basically share expertise, across the 4 nations and across the AHP professions. So at the moment, we've done a big review of the existing AHP research networks. We've linked in with some of the existing projects, so for example, Lisa's project and Kappa's directory professors. So we're working very closely with Kate Grafton on this to produce this work stream. And our main stakeholder engagement event we have planned for the Kappa conference day on the 9th of October. So it'd be fantastic if anybody is there, if they could join our session. We'd be really keen to hear your feedback, just to kind of get a bit of a feel for what would this research leadership community look like, what function would it serve, how would it be delivered, and how would it feel, what would it add to the existing research networks that are already out there. So that's where we are with that. If I can have the next slide, please. Yeah, so we'd really love to hear from you. So if you have any kind of thoughts, any nuggets of information, or anything that you thought, oh, as soon as you've listened to this, think, oh, actually, it'd be really great if I knew this, please do email me. My email address is on there. You can contact Hazel or I, but yeah, please do get in touch, and we really, really would love to hear from you. And it would especially be great if anybody has the space to go to the Kappa event on the 9th of October and attend Hazel and I's workshop. We'd really, really appreciate that. Hazel, anything I've missed?
No, that's super. Thank you so much. Jen, you'll still be available for the Q&A session
I will,
after
yes.
Amit's
Yeah.
going to speak next about the RCSLT updates, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much, Jen and Hazel. It's such a ambitious set of projects and such a fantastic set of intended outputs. And so everybody's aware that RCSLT are linking in with Jen and Hazel across many of those projects. So really excited to see those come to fruition across the tail end of this year and into next. So I'm just going to thank you so much to all our speakers so far for giving those updates from the sort of national level. We're now going to go into a quick section where we're going to have updates from the RCSLT research and outcomes team. And then, as Hazel has just mentioned, there'll be a little bit of time for a Q&A at the end of that before we have our break. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So we thought actually, as Hazel has said, there's so many familiar faces in the participant list, but there are others that are going to be new to the day today. So we just thought we'd start by reintroducing, who exactly are the research and outcomes team. And actually, this is a bit of a misleading photo because there's only about 4 of us working as kind of whole-time equivalent, but this is the team. And we are there to support you with all aspects of your kind of research and EBP endeavors. So if you could go to the next slide, please. We're there if you want to get in touch. We can have sort of those initial discussions around your plans for research, your projects, and we also have networks such as this and our Clinical Academic Mentors network that can provide a bit more detailed feedback for you and detailed advice, supervision, and mentorship to support you on your research journeys. We also do things like we might provide letters of support for large project funding bids, or we might consider representation on advisory panels if you're going for some significant research funding. So please consider that. If you're looking to disseminate your research recruitment opportunities or the findings from your research, there's also comms tools we can support you with there. So these are just some examples of the things we do. So get in touch if you think that would be useful. We'll go to the next slide, please. And we provide a whole range of resources that are far too many and varied to go into detail about now. But just to give you a broad sense of some of them, we provide lots of publications. So, of course, our flagship publication is the IGLCD, which is the RCSLT's academic journal. And we've got one of the editors-in-chief presenting a workshop and writing and reviewing for the journal later today. There's a variety of resources that we provide for you. So if you want to learn more about research methodology, we provide free access to SAGE's Research Methods Collection, which is a big catalogue of books, articles, and videos to help you learn more about the research process. And of course, we have access to our journals collection. And we know that many of you have access to journals already. Our journals collection is as best tailored as we can make it to SLT's needs. So please do, that may either be a kind of lifeline for you or may add to the existing access that you have. So please do check out that. And there are lots of other resources that we continue to provide, be it webinars, events, our research priorities projects. I won't go into them all, but please do look at our pages on the website or get in touch if you're interested in them. I'll go to the next slide, please. And just to give you a little bit of an update on how the networks have progressed over these last couple of years, the the Research Champions Network goes from strength to strength. And I think we are now, sorry, I'm just going to check my notes. I think we're now up to nearly 500 research champions with about 50, 60 research champions having joined over the past couple of years. And research champions have been involved in so many things that we do. So some have been reviewing student projects for our IGLCD student prize. Some have been reviewing bulletin articles, and there are plans to extend that into IGLCD articles. Many members have been included in our research project. So we've recently completed a scoping review of economic evaluations of SLT that a couple of research champions have a poster about on the Padlet, which you can check out at lunchtime. Members have been contributing to our research newsletter, to so many things that we do. So I guess one thing is to say thank you to you all for doing that. But another thing is to say, please do look out for opportunities, because we try to offer opportunities to get those kind of extra ticks on your research CV. So look out for those. From our clinical academic mentors network, again, that has grown over the last couple of years. And we have now over 100 clinical academic mentors who are a group of people who have started to get established on their research journeys and are happy to give back to the community to provide mentorship for those who are looking for it. This ranges across all levels, from those earlier on to those in very senior positions. So if you are looking, if you've got an idea, you're not sure what to do next, or even if you are further down the line and just a little bit uncertain about who might be good to approach for mentorship, then please do go to our website and request a clinical academic mentor. Or if you have the skills, sign up and become a mentor yourself, because it's a fantastic resource for the profession. I'll go on to the next slide, please. And then just to tell you about a couple of projects that we've been involved in, which we thought would be of most interest to you. So we joined a team led by a speech and language therapist, Sophie Chalmers, and supervised by Hazel, actually, that looked at, there was a systematic review looking at the value of AHP research engagement. And the reason we wanted to get involved in that project is we thought it could provide such a strategic impetus to support AHP research careers, obviously depending on the results of the review. And the results of the review were positive and did find tentatively some really good evidence for the impact of AHP research engagement on healthcare performance. So please do utilize the findings from the article, see our research forum article in Bulletin, or the podcast that Hazel and Sophie made about the paper, because it's a fantastic resource to help you in your discussions with managers, commissioners, and others to explain the value of AHP research. We'll go to the next slide, please. A project we've more recently finished is around the effectiveness of evidence-based healthcare educational interventions. It's a strategic aim of the research and outcomes team to support members with their evidence-based approach to practice, and we have various initiatives to do so, but we were really unclear where is the best place to expend our energies. So we did this review of the many studies that exist around educational interventions to support evidence-based healthcare. We now have the findings from that review and are starting to plan what we can do next that would be most effective to support members' evidence-based approach to practice. So please look out for opportunities to join any implementation work that we do on that, which hopefully will be coming maybe early next year or potentially even the tail end of this year. And please do also see the paper or our conference presentation if you're interested in this one. Okay, I'll go on to the next slide, please. And one big announcement that we wanted to make today was thanks to a group of research champions who did a lot of work actually quite a while ago, but then with delays from me and from within the RCSLT, we finally managed to publish our new and updated clinical academic careers web pages. So please do go onto the website, and Sarah, thank you for posting in the chat there a link to the new web pages. These have a wealth of resources about clinical academic careers, and so hopefully should be a really valuable source of information for everyone. Thank you again to the whole of the group that produced that for us, and it includes actually, if you go into the next slide, please, a set of videos with a group of research champions who are talking about why they chose to do research and top tips for getting involved in research. So thank you so much to them as well. Okay, I'm going to hand over, I think, now to Jess to talk about, who's our research manager, to talk about our research priorities project.
Hi everyone, thanks Amit. So as you may not know, but might know or might have indeed been involved in, we do have a priority setting partnership arm to our work within the R&O team. I won't go into lots of detail because we don't have the time, but provide sort of a brief overview of where we're currently at, and do reach out if you want some further information about this. So just as a bit of context, priority setting partnerships enable all stakeholders, including people with lived experience, to work together to identify and prioritise evidence uncertainties in particular areas of health and care that could be answered by research. This is an inherited project. It started back in 2015, where 5 key areas were identified by yourselves, by members, 3 of which were taken forward and 2 of which are still active. So we run internal PSPs, which involve both phase 1 and a phase 2, and that's very much following the principles of the James Lind Alliance. Phase 1 being to identify the top 10 priority areas in each clinical area, priority topics, and then phase 2 translating these priority topics into answerable, fundable research questions that really maximise the suitability and appeal of those priorities to both national and international research funding institutions. We've had some recent progress, particularly with the NIHR for our learning disabilities phase 2. So thank you to any of you guys that were involved in that. Both the HTA and HSDR commissioned funding streams are interested in some of the priorities there. And we've had a recent sort of quite big funding call you might have seen for discontinuing thickened fluids. So please do get in touch with us if you're thinking of applying for that, want to partner on what we can do to support you with that. Our DLD, so developmental language disorder, PSP, phase 2 is well underway. You might have seen some comms recently about that. We're working with Morehouse College and UCL. There's still time. The survey is open until tomorrow. So if you do work within that clinical population, please do have your say via the survey. And we've also got a recent opportunity to receive free foundation talking mat training to be able to deliver a personalised specific session with children with DLD to get their views on the priorities as well. Just a nod to the external priority setting partnerships that we also support. So these are PSPs that are relevant to SLT, or where we want to ensure that the SLT voice is really well represented within those priority setting partnerships. It might be that we're supporting them as a partner organisation, or less formally by promoting via our comms channels. Some of these are JLA-led, so James Lind Alliance-led, some aren't. We're currently sort of having our foot in the door in 3 external PSPs. So that was for childhood developmental stammering, childhood deafness and hearing loss, and also palliative and end-of-life care. So what can you do? Please do share the priorities, seek to undertake research in them, keep an eye out for funding calls. That sort of big thickener one is there at the moment. Let us know if you know of any PSPs. I try to keep my ear to the ground on this, but please do let me know if you know of any or are already involved in them that are SLT relevant, and do reference the priorities in your research applications. What we can do, as Amit's already mentioned, we can provide letters of support. We can support you to disseminate participant recruitment opportunities via our process. We can also coordinate expressions of interest for you guys to be RCSLT reps if an external PSP is in your area of interest, for example. So do reach out to me in the first instance if any of you are interested in our PSP arm. Thank you. I think I'm going to hand over to Sarah now.
Yes, hi. Next slide, please, Hannah. I will be very quick because I know we're already eating into the question time. I'm a research and outcomes officer at RCSLT, so that means I work across the research arm and outcomes and informatics. So just a couple of headline things. Hazel has very kindly already mentioned the RCSLT online outcome tool. So just to flag that as something that's continuing to grow and develop. We now have over 80 different services using Root, and it's a really useful way for kind of those like practice-based projects, kind of looking at quality improvement in your service. So just to explain that it's a way of collecting Tom's data is the kind of key thing. Because that's growing so much, we've now got over 90,000 completed episodes of care actually in the database as a whole. And we started to kind of use that data a little bit internally, mainly for sort of awareness raising activity and things like that. But we are kind of now actively exploring the possibilities for sort of opening that up to researchers to access some of that data. So we're looking at sort of engaging with service users and piloting things kind of in the next year. And also just to mention on the informatics side of things that we are undertaking some work around SNOMED, as that's increasingly being used in electronic patient record systems. And as it is kind of an international system, there's quite a lot of potential there for research kind of using, you know, real world clinical data. We've got a team of members who are kind of working with us on it, with looking to kind of consult more widely in the future. So that's a very quick rundown. Myself and my colleague Charlie are going to be available at lunchtime, so if you'd like to kind of say hi or just yeah, come find out a bit more, find out where to find out more, then just come along, or our email address is also on there for anything to do with outcomes and informatics. You can email that address and we'll get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So we are just about time, I think, 5 minutes for, but perhaps we'll do burning questions. The RCSLT team will be here all day, so if you do want to catch us at any other point to ask questions for us, that would be great. But what I'll do now is just open it up to anybody that's got any questions from everything that you've heard so far. So I will be keeping an eye on the chat, but also pop your hand up if you want to ask any questions for the next 5 minutes or so. Sarah, is that your hand up? Oh, you've got a yellow box around you. That's strange. I can't see any hands. Unless anybody else can see hands, or have we stunned you into silence?
I wondered, while we are potentially waiting for questions or not, Hazel and Jen, you mentioned about the Kappa conference on the 9th of October. I don't know if it's an opportunity to say a little bit more about the conference, because I think the people who are interested in Research Champions Day are likely to be very interested in that as well. Probably likely to know quite a lot about it already, but for any that don't, it might be a useful addition.
Certainly, yes. Thanks, Amit. The full programme is available on the booking link. So, as I say, we've had to extend the number of places. And if people do have any experience where you try to book on and it tells you that the event is full, please know that that will then trigger another tranche of places. I'm not sure, I'm not involved in the technical support for that, whether that will automatically add you to a waiting list. So the reasons for joining that event is that there are going to be many important announcements about new initiatives and how people can get involved. So how you can benefit, how you can learn for your own development, how you can network with others. So as Lisa said, connectivity and collaborations and networks. None of us can do any of this on our own. We need to know who we can ask. And sometimes it's great to really know who you can ask within your own professional discipline or your own local or regional access. But you know, these online networks have been superb, and we've all recognised over these last few years about the power of online networking as well. Other parts of the day are going to be interactive, so opportunities to contribute and to influence the next stages of development. I'm trying to think what else is on the programme. As I say, the programme is available online, so people can see that and decide if you register and, like today, only able to pop in and out during the day, that's fine as well, because we recognise the pressure on everybody's diaries and calendars. Jen, is there anything else you'd like to add about the Kappa event?
No, it's fine. I've got the programme up. I can quickly run through it if nobody else has any questions. Oh, we've got a hand up actually.
Yeah, let's move to Katie's question, and then people can look at the programme for themselves. Hi, Katie.
Hiya. Yeah, my question is, within the trust that I work into, I did a research internship, like a short-term project, and it looked at barriers and enablers to the speech therapy staff. engaging in research. It was looking at capability and capacity amongst the staff. And the outcomes, we got the outcomes of the projects complete, and I presented it kind of in a away day to the staff team, and there was a number of recommendations, I suppose, to take it forward, which would include creating part of a post or having some time for somebody to lead that and to take that forward. And I suppose, and the project finished in March, and it's sort of at a standstill now because, again, it comes to that thing about funding and money and creating something to be able to take forward those recommendations. I just wondered if you had any advice or ways that I could take that forward, I suppose, to try and get some funding or have something created to take it forward.
Thank you for sharing that, Katie. I think that in the first case, I'd like to suggest that you could have a conversation with Jen, because this is going to be very valuable for other people right across the 4 nations who are in a very similar situation at the moment. So yes, we need to secure investment, and that's investment financially, but also in terms of in kind and support from the organisation valuing the significance and importance of these roles. So while we're trying to map the current landscape for that and secure examples of where it's worked and where there have been very specific barriers, we're also looking at business cases and templates for job descriptions. I know that this is something that RCSLT have been doing specifically for SLT profession as well, looking at job descriptions. So maybe a conversation with Jen, conversation with Amit would be really helpful, and Gemma. Okay, I'll pass over to you next, Gemma.
I'm just going to do a little bit of just come to our workshop because we're going to be talking about some of those things, Katie. So actually your experiences would be really helpful. So I'm just upselling.
I'm just going to jump in as well, if that's okay, Katie. It's great to hear about your work, and as Hazel said, I'd love to find out more about it. It's so tricky, isn't it? As you say, the reality of sort of funding is really stretched, and you were mentioning about the kind of various barriers enablers that exist. I'd love to hear about the kind of complexity of those that you found. I think a couple of things that I'd add to what Hazel has said. She's mentioned about the clinical academic role job templates that, in fact, Gemma helped us to develop, and we felt could be one thing that could support the kind of situation you're looking at. I'm not trying to say that it's the resolution of it, but one thing that can help. And I've seen that Sarah Hayward in the chat has posted that she developed a business case to try to leverage this in her organization. So she's really kindly mentioned she's happy to have a chat. We have spoken to other managers across the NHS who've been in a similar situation. There's a couple who've in the past been happy to have a chat with others looking to do the same thing. Again, these are never going to be perfect solutions because each organization is different. But I think it's great to hear that you've done that initial exploration. I don't know which trust you're based in, but I know that some of those up in Northumbria do have quite a supportive culture around research, and I hope maybe that could be part of the series of things that could help to push this forward. But ultimately, I would love to find out more.
I am sorry, Amit, I can't find a hand to raise, but I'm really interested, Katie, on and really important if you can share that work. So just to say that obviously it's still in the development stage, but the cunning plan of the Research Leaders Programme for AHPs will be that it will offer a 2-day backfill resource to release senior research leaders and developing research leaders to do such work. So I'm being cautious because it's not yet formed and it's not yet developed, but there most certainly will be resource to support 2 days of such things. And the focus will very much be within that, to embed it within areas, trusts, and priorities. So yeah, just sorry to just dip back in there, if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you, Lisa. I've just noticed there's lots of comments and suggestions and links in the chat. We do have one question. I'm conscious of time, so if we go to this one question and then we'll stop for a break. So Amy is asking, I think this will come to you, Amit. Do you have any guidance on payment for participants other than NIHR, as they don't give a clear answer, and the effect this potentially can have on people's benefits?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We don't have any specific guidance from the RCSLT. We do, one of our strategic vision areas is around co-production and engagement and involvement. So whilst we're kind of focused on it and fully supportive of it, we ourselves actually try to follow the NIHR guidance as closely as we can. So I understand the uncertainties within there. My understanding is that in more recent iterations of the guidance, there is comment to help negotiate the benefit side of things. But I think many people on this call will know about that guidance much better than I do. So apologies if that's not correct. But trying to keep it as a short answer because of break, we don't provide anything extra, but happy to discuss.
Thank you, Amit. I know that Izzy has got a question just around whether the research leaders for the AHP programme is also in Scotland. So I think Hazel, you might be able to, or Lisa might be able to answer.
Yes, I was just leaving, but I just saw that. And so at the moment, it's NIHR England. So it's funded through the usual NIHR sort of, I guess, remit. Now, it's needed, of course, in the 4 nations, and I'm very aware of that and working collegiately. So that's probably the position that I can say at the moment. So aware of it, but I don't think it includes it's not a 4 nation offer at the moment.
Thank you. You can sneak off now, Lisa. Take your opportunity.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, we will break now. Apologies, I knew this was going to happen. We were slightly over. We'll still stick to a 10-minute break. Amit, am I thinking that would be the right thing to do here?
I think probably, would it be okay if we came back at 11:15? Because we've got a break after Gemma and Kate's session, which may be able to eat into. So if we say slight change to program, we'll come back at 11:15 to kick off with the next session around frameworks and resources to support your research career.
Makes sense. Fab. Okay, see you then, everyone.
I'm just going to check that Gemma and Kate are here. I don't know if yes, I can see Kate and Gemma. Brilliant. Thank you so much. So thank you so much to Gemma and Kate, who are now going to take us through a paper that they wrote and published in the IGLCD, focusing on different frameworks and resources to support your SLT research career. So over to you guys.
Thank you, Amit, and thanks for welcoming us to speak today. My name is Kate Harrell, and I am a professional lead for speech and language therapy at ESNEFT. I also hold a role as a lecturer at the University of Essex, working in their new Health, Wellbeing and Care Hub. And also for context, I was seconded for 3 years within my NHS role to work as an AHP clinical academic, which ended last year. And over to you, Gemma.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Gemma Cleaney. I'm Senior Clinical Academic SLT at Imperial College Healthcare NHS Trust. And I'm also currently in receipt of NIHR funding that makes my post 50% research, 50% clinical, one of the new SCAPRA awards. I think if we can have the next slide.
Next slide, yeah.
And possibly the next slide again. Next slide again, sorry. Thank you. So just a little bit of context about this paper, as Amit has already presented. Kate and I were both on the Clinical Academic SEN Committee, which was established back in September 2019 in response to the growing engagement of SLTs within research at every level, from embedding research in clinical practice to all the way through to becoming professors. And through our work with the SEN and the study days that we were organising and running, as well as the burgeoning evidence base in relation to clinical academic careers for NMAPs, we realised that there was an increasing interest in becoming research active, as this day entirely represents, within our profession and also for healthcare professionals more broadly. But there were so many questions from the delegates at our study days, from emails we were getting kind of around where do you even start? How do you work out the gaps in your knowledge? How do you have a conversation with your manager about the fact that you're interested in research? And how do you identify if your organisation is research active and therefore a supportive space for you to be able to explore those aspects of your career pathway? Next slide, please. So as a result of those questions, we decided to do what good SLTs who are interested in research should do and look to the literature. And as part of the paper, we had 4 key aims that you can read on the slide there. We really wanted to kind of have a look at the differing models, frameworks, and support structures that we knew were out there for NMAPs and for speech and language therapists. But most importantly, we wanted the paper to be a practical resource for our colleagues, their managers, and any organisations that they worked for, in order to be able to identify the most relevant tool for themselves and what they wanted out of their research careers, or if you're a manager for their staff or as an organisation, how to kind of think about embedding clinical academic activity outside of medicine, which is obviously where it's a much more established pathway. We wanted the tools presented in the review to demonstrate how research skills, development and exposure can be used to nurture a clinical academic workforce more broadly as well. Next slide, please, and handing over to Kate.
Thanks, Gemma. So in order to meet the aims of the study and with regards to our methodology, we conducted a narrative review. And for this, we carried out a librarian-assisted literature search of electronic databases, including Medline, CINAHL, RMed and Embase. Further publications were identified through reference lists and through social media platforms and professional networks, as well as national body and governmental websites. And so the initial searches, following removal of duplications, showed 610 potential literature and articles for us to have a look at. So our eligibility criteria in order to review the records was that we wanted to include articles where the development of a model, framework or support structure that assisted with clinical academic career development was described. And we set our population to NMAPs as we felt that an eligibility criteria just for SLTs would be too narrow and produce insufficient results. And I think, as we've heard already from today, the NMAP community really does apply to kind of research. We have quite similar research career paths at the moment, so that felt like a natural fit for us to look at that for eligibility criteria. We did, however, ensure studies were pertinent to SLTs in particular, such as by ensuring that speech therapists were participants in studies where this was relevant. So Gemma and I conducted the initial screens of the literature by title and abstract, both taking an equal share of all those 610 papers initially just by title and abstract, and we used the eligibility criteria to determine suitability. We then, once we'd narrowed down to 66 articles, as we'd excluded 544, we then applied the same eligibility criteria when we retrieved the full text. A further corroborative independent review of all full text sources of evidence against the eligibility criteria was completed by 2 additional researchers, which is Emma Louise Sinnott and Lucy Roebuck Says, and all of us came together to discuss and reach an agreement on the final included evidence. Whilst going through the screening and eligibility process, it became apparent that further clarity was required to really define the terminology in which we were talking about around framework, model and support structure, to make sure that we were all on the same page with that. So we agreed amongst us that a framework was a structure underlying a system or concept. There were two definitions for model, one being a schematic description of a system or process, and the second being an exemplar of a system or process. And then for support structure was defined as a tool to support or help or to give scaffold to that support. Next slide, please. So 19 articles and literature were included in the review and terms of our findings. So to present the findings in a structured way, we categorised the models, frameworks and support structures according to whether they were resources for the individual, for teams or for organisations. A narrative description is provided in the paper and the articles are summarised in a table, a section of which is shown on this slide. Peer review feedback from our first article submission was that further support should be provided to the reader to help them select the model, framework or support structure relevant to them. This is brilliant feedback for us. We really agreed with what was being said. So following this feedback, we reviewed each one included within our paper and categorised them using terminology actually used within one of the models itself, the clinical academic model by Patterson et al., which Gemma's going to talk about in a bit. So toe dippers refer to entry-level clinical academics, waders are those undertaking research training, trackers are established clinical academics, and spearheaders are research leaders. So taking the first one on the list, the Cook's RCDI framework as an example, you'll see it's highlighted in blue that this is a framework, and in green for an organisation, and is applicable to all levels of researchers. You will see that other tools may only be applicable to some, such as the Healthcare Professionals in Research Facebook community, which is the next one on the list, which is suitable for those undertaking research training, so waders, and trackers, those who are more established clinical academics. Where it's not suitable, this is indicated with an NA. Next slide, please. We also created this visual go-to guide where we listed the models, frameworks and support structures under the categories of individual, team and organisational, whilst also indicating in italics whether the tools were visual guides, competency frameworks, toolkits and so on. This was to further facilitate navigation of the reader to the appropriate tool for them. We'll now pick out and discuss a few of these tools. Next slide, please.
So this tool is described as the DINARC toolkit. It's for an individual. It was published back in 2019 by Isle Smith and Ursa and was developed for NMAP early postdoctoral researchers using author experience and from evidence review and synthesis. There are 5 domains to the tool that make up the acronym for the name: dissemination, implementation, networking, active research, and clinical practice. The authors of the tool intended for this to be used to aid development and progression into clinical academic careers through offering a structure and guidance to the individual and their managers. The tool was shared and evaluated by an expert group consisting of clinical academics, academic supervisors of practitioners, and nurse leaders responsible for research capacity building. There are plenty of accompanying resources, including a practitioner research plan and mentor-mentee discussion guide. It's a really practical example of some of the resources that we identified in the review. And although it is defined as useful for those in a postdoctoral space, I think we feel it could really be adapted for use at all levels. The breakdown of domains in particular, so the sort of dissemination, implementation, networking, clinical, it can be really helpful when you're planning a funding application, because often they want you to identify the aspects of you as an individual that are, very strong and where you may need development. Next slide, please. So this was the model that Kate referenced in the table. It's called the Clinical Academic Model, developed by Patterson et al. Only a couple of years ago in 2022. It was developed using case study framework analysis, which identified common themes amongst senior clinical nursing posts. And as Kate has already described, it proposed 4 levels of clinical academics based on characteristics rather than job roles. And this is really important because as clinicians, we may have a degree of seniority, or we may be starting out, and that may not match our research experience. So, just because you're a band 8 doesn't necessarily mean that as a researcher that you have lots and lots of experience. You could well have someone who's a band 5 with a PhD. So I think it's really important to kind of have that distinction and think about skills as opposed to necessarily where you are within your clinical career, for example. As Kate has already said, toe dippers are the entry level clinical academics, the people who are kind of wondering, do I really want to do this, and just kind of seeing what's out there, progressing through to waders who are undertaking research training, usually funded. Trackers are established clinical academics. I guess I would place myself in this position now following my PhD. And spearheaders are those research leaders who are inspiring others into clinical academia and perhaps have reached professorial level as well. The model acknowledges that facilitation is required for access to each level and can very much be impacted by your environment and the organisation that you're working with. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Gemma. So the Research Capacity and Culture Tool, or RCC tool, was developed by Holden et al. In 2012, so it's a little bit older. And it was developed to measure research capacity building interventions and needs assessments at an individual, team and organisational level, so all 3 of those domains. So each domain involves a series of statements, and the respondent scores that statement on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 refers to the lowest skill level and 10 as the highest skill level. A sample of these statements is shown on the side. As part of the validation process, the tool was carried out by a sample of 134 AHP staff, and 9% of which were SLTs. The authors report good internal consistency and test-retest reliability. However, what struck me when looking at these statements was that there was no guide as to how to score. So my interpretation of a 10 score, for example, might be someone with considerable research experience, a spearheader perhaps, but a colleague of mine scored hers much more based on her own confidence and experience rather than comparing herself to others in the research world. So I feel like this could lead to some variability in scoring between respondents. In addition, I think it could prove challenging to complete the RCC organisational questions for some healthcare professionals who are not fully aware or engaged at higher levels within their organisation. So taking one of them on the slide as an example, the organisation engages with external partners, e.g. universities and research. Some individuals may be aware of how much their organisation is engaging with external partners, but some may not. Our literature search found 13 articles where the RCC tool had been used, so it is a well-used tool. And this included articles from Australia, the USA, and the UK. Some studies looked at evaluating particular professions, such as dietetics, but of note, this hasn't been done with the SLT profession to date, as far as our search found. A UK AHP-wide survey was conducted in 2012 and 2022, and perhaps some people were involved in that. It did use the RCC tool and was led by a team of researchers, Coma et al., linked to Kappa. SLT were the 3rd largest profession to respond, making up about 10% of respondents. And this survey found lower scores at the team domain statements, and the authors attribute this to potential low levels of research confidence among healthcare clinical team managers and potential conflict between clinical capacity, resource, and research. One paper highlighted higher RCC scores in the team and organisations where there were dedicated research leads, which demonstrates the importance of these roles within organisations. Another study used the RCC tool to evaluate the implementation of research building strategies by conducting pre- and post-intervention RCC tools with their participants. So this shows how the RCC tool can be used as an outcome measure for longitudinal change in response to an intervention. So the statements related to barriers and facilitators to research, which is also part of the RCC tool, you'll see that these sample statements are simple statements where you're not actually asked to score from 1 to 10, and it's rather you select all of those that apply. So they're not using this ordinal scale. In papers that use this tool, often methodology includes focus groups or interviews to help explore these barriers and facilitators. Next slide, please. So this is an organisational tool, the Research Capacity Development for Impact Framework. And it was developed over a 10-year period and involved collaboration with NHS trusts, health charities, academic institutions and governmental authorities. As you can see, the framework has a nice visual to it, and it is made up of structural levels, so individuals, organisations, and then the health and social care systems, alongside cross-cutting principles such as skill and confidence building. The model attempts to demonstrate the complexity of building research capacity and capability, and the authors suggest it could be useful for organisations to use this framework as a basis for developing research strategy. Something I liked about the paper that describes this framework was the inclusion of suggestions of how to develop some of the skills outlined in the framework. For example, to achieve skills and confidence building, the authors suggest developing communities of practice centred around research and clinical specialism, mentorship and leading by example. So I felt this helps the reader to understand the practical application of the detail of the models for individuals and their managers, alongside giving it this strategic kind of scaffold of the model as a whole. Next slide, please.
So we acknowledge that for many of us, we have very limited influence or control to affect how our organisations are run and the clinical academic opportunities, therefore, that are afforded to us. And regardless of our institutions, it's fairly consistent that there will be a lack of organisational support for clinical academic roles within NMAPs at the moment. We understand there's ambition, but for many teams, leaders and organisations, it's a real struggle to provide the necessary infrastructure to sustain a clinical academic career pathway, as Kate's experience has shown. And even for those of us like myself who find themselves in a funded post, it can be volatile and not necessarily permanent.
Within our paper, some exemplar models are presented, and these examples may assist us when having conversations with leaders within our organisations. So, for example, I recently attended a research symposium organised by the head of research at my organisation. We were talking through the challenges of sustaining clinical academic roles, like the one that I was in, and I was able to suggest the embedded researcher model by Whitehouse et al. As a model that we could look at within our own organisation. Common threads throughout these models include the importance of collaboration and partnerships across academic, healthcare and charitable organisations, developing dedicated posts such as a PPI lead, or offering dedicated time to postdoctoral researchers. Next slide, please.
So some key considerations from the study. It was very clear across the papers that we looked at that there's very widely differing terminology to describe what we have used as a term of clinical academics. But no matter the terminology, the overriding semantics were the same. A healthcare professional who wants to be involved in research and clinical activity and not have to choose between the two. Using tools, frameworks, models to support clinical academic careers is really helpful, both for individuals, for managers, and for organisations, because it helps you to be data-driven, which is obviously vital when you're working in a research space. And the various tools that we identified also provide a really strong case for embedding research activity within existing roles, both in terms of doing and supporting others. So, for example, having objectives within your PDR, rather than seeing clinical academic roles as a nice to have in terms of an add-on or something to be seconded into for a finite amount of time. There was, as Kate has said, really widespread use of the research capacity and culture tool, and there's no doubt it's very helpful for evaluating clinical academic skills in a profession or a group of professions or across 2 time periods, for example, after a focus on clinical academic development. But there is no published research at the moment looking solely at SLT, and Kate has already mentioned some of the subjective issues when interpreting the tool results. And finally, organisational modelling really does highlight the importance of collaboration between health and academic institutions, strong leadership, and the need for key appointments on staff for MMAPs. This is vital for the sustainable development of clinical academic careers over a lifetime. Next slide, please.
And this is the last slide. I'm mindful we're coming to the end of our time. One of the most important elements I just wanted to mention was that we found that considerations for equality, diversity, and inclusion were lacking in the models and frameworks we described. But it's been highlighted that there are many inequalities that we know of in clinical academic, which include race, gender, and ethnicity. So it's something that we feel is really important to address. There were a couple of papers around nursing. For example, an approach was described in one paper around building research capacity with Hispanic nurses in the US to employ them into research assistant roles. And there was another study outlined called Writing to Improve Nursing Science to support nurses from low and middle income countries with academic writing. And in this particular paper, they'd said that the results indicated increased publication for those who are enrolled on the course, so it can bring about change and good results. And it was good to hear this morning that there is a focus on equity and thinking about equity. But we really need to make sure that in our clinical academic workforce for the future, that there are people who are represented in clinical academic roles, so that future generations are inspired to know that there are people who look and sound like them in these roles, and also to represent the populations in which we are researching. We've already discussed some of the organisational challenges within clinical academic career pathways. So what we really want to say is a call to kind of, rather than them be exemplar models, wouldn't it be fantastic if some of these models became the norm rather than the exception? And hopefully with the momentum that sounds like it's building at a national level from the work that's happening with Hazel and Lisa and Jen that we heard about this morning, this will come about in due course. But thinking about us as individuals, and to finish, for the people we manage, mentor or supervise, the RCSLT professional development framework shows evidence, research and innovation as one of the 4 pillars, but I'm not sure it is currently given the same focus as the others. Therapists will develop their professional practice, perhaps be encouraged to go on a leadership course or take on a student, but not to engage in research activities. Hopefully the models and frameworks provided in our paper can help demystify this for us all so that the research pillar has equal focus. Thank you. That's the end of our presentation. I realise that we've gone right up to time, but if there are any burning questions, then Gemma and I would be happy to take them.
Okay. Thanks so much, Kate and Gemma, for that presentation about your papers. Totally fascinating to see in more detail about the resources that exist and sort of strengths and areas for development across them. I wonder, actually, in the interest of time, whether if people have questions, I know you have your workshop after the break and we have the chat, so I wonder if it's okay if we say either post your questions in the chat for you to answer, or I know some will come along to the workshop. Would that be okay?
Of course, yeah, that's great. We'll do that.
Fantastic, thank you. So Hannah, I don't know if we could go to the slide with the workshop rooms just quickly before we break. So just to let you know, we'll have a 5-minute break, if that's okay, instead of rather than the sort of scheduled 10-minute break. So we'll come back at 11:45. When you come back, the idea will be to go into these workshop sessions, which are just displayed for you here. We have sort of aimed them at different sort of research levels. So the ideal will be to find the one that's at your level, but if you have particular interests in one or the other, then please do go to them. The aim is to network with others who are at a kind of similar stage in their research journey, to find out a bit more from the speakers as well. So look forward to seeing you in one of those sessions straight after the break. So just to reiterate, 11:45, come back, and then you'll see an option to go into the breakout room that most suits where you need to be. In the ensuing few minutes, if you have any questions, then please do post them to Justina, or just put your hand up and we can quickly discuss them. Okay, so we'll see you at 11:45. Welcome back after those workshop sessions. Thanks so much to everyone for contributing to those sessions, and of course, especially to the workshop leaders for doing all the work and presenting in all those sessions. I was, of course, only able to be in one of them, but it was really fascinating insight into the world of postdoc research and interesting reflections upon some kind of opportunities and difficulties there. So really great to see those discussions happen and start to consider ways forward. Just quickly, I'm gonna set things up before we break for lunch. So we're going to break in a minute, and then we're going to come back at 1:30. Over the lunchtime, please do remember that we have our outcomes team are running our route stall, so please do visit the virtual stall if you want to find out more about the route, or if you're already using it and problem solving around it. It's such a fantastic resource and aligns so clearly with all our aims across the day, so please do visit the team there. As we mentioned before, the poster Padlet is open over lunchtime, and poster presenters, if you can be available over lunchtime to respond to any queries that come on your posters, that would be fantastic. So it'd be great for you to go there and see some of the work that Research Champions are doing. They're across these clinical areas that are of immediate relevance to all of us around CYP, around co-production, stakeholder perspectives and communication access, eating, drinking, and swallowing, and professional development and clinical academic journeys. So please do go there. I think I've seen a message in the chat asking about how to go there, and I think someone is going to post the link directly to the Padlet in the chat. But if not, you can go to our website, go to the research events web pages, and the link is there. But I'm sure someone will hopefully post that. Fantastic, it's already there. That's it. So thanks so much to everyone for this morning, and really look forward to seeing you back at 1:30 for more of a focus on networking, and then more of a focus on those kind of workshop learning sessions across the afternoon. So thank you so much, and see you at 1:30.
Everyone, that's us starting back. It's 1:30. I hope everyone has had a chance to get some lunch, but also a chance to pop into the virtual stall for the Royal Club Speech and Language Therapists outcome team we're running. And also, we hope you had a chance to look at some lovely posters in the Padlet, posters that were talking about co-production, under-researched populations, career research progression, and collaborative working, which leads me very nicely into introducing our next, Amit Kalari, who's going to bring us into the session on collaborative working and networking. Amit, handing over to you.
Thanks so much, Marion. So yes, as Marion says, hope everyone's had a good break. We're now going to go into a session which is focused on sort of building collaborations across the research champion community. We're really aware of that key role that networking plays, whether it's meeting supervisors, supervisees, meeting other clinicians in your field, whatever it may be. And as such, we wanted to provide an opportunity for you to spend some time with other SLTs who are interested in research and at different stages in their journey. So in a minute, we're all going to be automatically assigned into breakout rooms of 3 or 4 people. And we're going to have just over 10 minutes to start building those connections. We've prepared a set of prompt questions if you would like to use them to guide your discussions. And thank you, Justina, she's just put that in the chat. And this is your opportunity to plant a seed, to make your mark, to start just putting out feelers and tentacles across the research champion community. So just to be clear, we're going to do this twice. So you'll have about 13 minutes in the first room, then we'll be brought back into this main room, and then we'll go into a second group, which will hopefully randomly assign you to a different group of people, but who knows what probability will bring and who you will end up with. As we say, use the question prompts if you would like, but don't feel wedded to them. If you can keep your discussions research related, that is fantastic, because that will be what supports you to build those connections, but who knows where it will go. So I'll hand over to the events team, who I think are going to randomly assign us into our rooms for our 2 sets of conversations. So welcome back, everyone. We're going to go into now our final session of the day, which is our second set of workshops. You should be able to see the slides on the screen in front of you with the list of the 5 workshops. You should also have a pop-up which tells you the different breakout rooms. If you scroll down to the bottom of that, like this morning, you should be able to find the 5 breakout rooms, and then you can just join whichever one you want. If that pop-up hasn't popped up, then I think what you do is you go to the More button at the bottom, and you should be able to find the breakout rooms navigating by there. Please, if you know which group you want to go into, then please just join the group now. As I mentioned earlier, they are aimed at different kind of research levels, but if the topic is of particular interest to you, then please do feel free to follow that if you think that would be more useful. I am going to stay here for a second, and I think our events team will be here for a second in case there are any difficulties. But otherwise, if you just want to go into your rooms now, and then we'll be back into this main room at, I think it's 3:05 for final discussions. We've come to the end of the day. So thank you all so much for your engagement over the day. It's just been great to see this interest from everyone, to meet some of you, to hear about your research journeys. And as you well know, the aim of our Research Champion Network is to drive forward research culture in our profession and to support each other to do that. And I hope that has come across all of the day. And I hope you feel as energized as I do after our kind of smorgasbord of different activities that we've had over the day. Sorry to go all kind of Oscars and Hollywood on you, but I'd like to say lots of thanks, if that's okay, because lots of people have been responsible for making this day happen. So of course, our events team, whose logistical skills and managing multiple processes are kind of beyond my wildest dreams. So thank you so much, Hannah, Justina, and Jazz, of course, for making that happen. I don't know if the kind of wider group know, but we put a call out to research champions to help us plan this day. And there's a small group of you who have helped us to do that, taking the time to really shape the content. So Sam, Julie, Rachel, Hannah, Lauren, thanks so much for attending those planning sessions with us and building the day. We've had lots of great speakers, and I won't try to mention everyone, but from Hazel, Gemma and Kate this morning, and everyone doing presentations then, to all the workshop leads, you've all given your time willingly, and very kind of you. So thank you for supporting the day in that way. And then lots of colleagues in the research and outcomes team have been busy behind the scenes, as well as some of us presenting. So our research manager, who's currently on maternity leave, Caroline Bagnall, was largely responsible for this day. So thank you so much, Caroline. And then Jess, Sarah, Charlie, Gemma, for everything you've been doing and are still doing now, I can see on various chats and things. Before we go, I just want to mention about the feedback form. As I've said earlier, we plan the day with research champions, but we also need your feedback to decide where to start, which direction to go in, whether to consider online versus in-person meetings. So please do fill in the form and give us your feedback. It'd be really helpful for us to plan the next day. And then I think just to wrap up, just to say, just as I think we've heard throughout the day, that so many people here at different stages in their research journeys with different agendas, but everyone with so much focus on pushing forward research in our profession. So much perspiration in all the Asians, in essentially to make sure that we are driving things forward. And we're all doing that in different ways. We're all taking that to people around us to inspire our local teams. So please continue to do that. And as we all know, that's the way to continue pushing forward our careers and our professions. So thank you so much to you all, and many thanks for attending today.